Well, man, I want to welcome all of you here this afternoon or tonight, whatever the case may be for you. We're in the launch of Business Legal Lifecycle with my good friend, Jeremy Stritton. Jeremy, man, I couldn't be more excited. I've been involved in these launches before, and it is one exciting thing to be involved in this. So, man, hey, my hat's off to you tonight.
Thanks, Big A, and thanks for agreeing to host tonight for you and this morning for me over in sunny Brisbane. So yeah, it's great to be here, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, when we first started talking about this book a couple of years ago, I was privileged to be asked to write the foreword in it. And I get asked to write forewords from time to time, and I'm like, I'm not sure I want to do this. But when you sent it to me and I got an opportunity to look at the manuscript, I said, I have got to be involved in this. So thank you so much. I was very honored. I'm very excited to be involved. For those that don't know me, my name is Aaron Walker. I'm president and founder of View from the Top. I'm a life and business coach. We've had the privilege of owning 14 businesses. And Jeremy, I started thinking about this and I said, I wished I had had this book. 40 years ago when I started my first business, it would have been just a game changer for me. So first and foremost, I want to welcome everybody here tonight. And this is a very exciting time for Jeremy. Also, I want to share just a little bit about the reason that we're here. It's an exciting time, but the thing that can help Jeremy the most is reviews. And we want to jump on today on Amazon. We want to click on the link that's going to be put in the chat box, and we want to buy his book. It really helps take it to the #1 bestseller in that category. And you guys here tonight can help us do that. So we're excited that you're here, and we know that you want to be involved in helping Jeremy launch his book. Well, we've also got a great guy with us tonight. Keithel, how's it going?
Doing great. I'd love to say I'm in sunny Florida, but unfortunately it's a little rainy. Otherwise, wonderful day.
Well, hey, it's sunshine above those clouds. And so it historically is sunny in Tampa where you're at. But, man, I'm really excited that you're here tonight with us. Also, you're an attorney there in Florida. And tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So I am an attorney here in Tampa. I'm also a CPA. I've got my MBA. I'm an adjunct professor for the University of South Florida, where I teach for the master's program. And I run the law office of Fresh Legal Perspective, where I'm managing partner for the 4 attorneys that work here.
Very cool. Very cool. Tell us a little bit more about what attracted you to work on this project.
So first and foremost, attorneys are teachers. At the end of the day, we educate our clients. We help keep them in the loop on basically what they need to know, what they need to see. So when I was approached about the book, it's an amazing opportunity to, A, teach. You're educating your client. At the same time, it's a resource for the client to help them identify legal issues, which solves another problem that attorneys everywhere face, which is making sure your clients identify the issue and bring it to your attention when you can still do something about it. So it serves as both an educational resource for the client and as a marketing solution for attorneys, where clients bring you the issue proactively rather than you having to continuously send out email blasts and remind them that you exist and remind them to be on the lookout for specific issues. Right. So this was the solution to a problem that I've been facing for 10 years. So I jumped on board immediately.
Yeah, man, I can't blame you for that at all. How can you see that this is benefiting the U.S. lawyers?
So U.S. lawyers specifically, I guess I can only really speak for U.S. lawyers anyway, but we're in charge of both rainmaking, educating, and basically doing our job. So you put all that together and basically you need something to make the most of your time. This book does both the educational aspect and part of the rainmaking aspect, frankly. Clients come in informed about the topic of the law far more than they are when you're starting from ground zero. They've seen examples in the books of how these areas of the law apply to their business, and they come in ready with questions that aren't entry-level questions. They come in with advanced-level questions. So we skip the beginning of the meeting going over the basics and jump right to the important part that they care about, making the most of their time, making the most of my time. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is making the most of every hour that you work. So it benefits lawyers everywhere in that you're making more value for your client and you're making more value for the firm by giving this book and putting this book in front of your clients.
Well, you yourself have a practice there, and how do you see you using this application to your own personal business?
So in my business, as I mentioned, there's multiple aspects of it. You've got client education and you've got client marketing, both of which are very important. In my practice, I want to make sure that every business owner that comes through my door receives a copy of the book. That way they can review it. The book has many different chapters that take you through the business lifestyle,
right.
business legal life cycle. So it works out really well in that no matter what stage the business is at, the business owner will find value in that book. And basically the value that's created by the book will also act as a marketing element for my firm. So at every initial consult with a business owner, I want to make sure that they get a copy of the book so they keep me in mind, they spot issues, and they come back to me when those issues are present without me having to do any kind of hard sell or push marketing.
Mm. You know, Jeremy's really done a good job with this book in helping demystify the legal processes in this book. And I really like how he uses real life examples to show his work. And so I think he's done an incredible job in that process as well. I was reading Stathis' name. I see he's one of our mastermind members and a couple others. Anthony Witt's on the call with us as well. And welcome to you guys. I know you personally. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Keithel, to how U.S. attorneys could use this better in their everyday process?
I mean, there's only a little bit to be added, and that is that the scope of business law attorneys isn't always understood by clients. They don't necessarily understand the range of topics that business law can encompass. And the book does a very good job of explaining all sorts of the aspects that business owners are going to face that are covered by business law attorneys. You can look at a chapter on purchasing investment real estate. The book helps identify the problems that are going to arise during that and point out the areas that an attorney can benefit the process. Mm-hmm. It points out estate planning and which tools are going to be needed to help the business owner through their estate planning aspect. Mm-hmm. So the scope of what a business law attorney does is really presented very nicely within the book and pointed out to the entrepreneur where value can be added by bringing in an attorney.
Mm. Well, let's discuss that just a little bit more because I know there's a lot of business owners on the call this afternoon. Let's talk about estate planning just a little further.
So every business owner needs some form of estate planning, but if your business is a specific type, let's say you own a law practice, that can only be transitioned to specific individuals, at least within the state of Florida. Mm-hmm. Specifically, attorneys have to own law firms. And various different professions have those types of specialized transition issues where going to an attorney to go over your estate plan, they will bring up those issues. They'll help you address who can inherit your business if you plan to, devise it to your heirs, or whether part of your estate plan is going to be selling off part of the business or some combination thereof where part of it's sold and part of it's retained by a family member. So business owners don't always think that through in advance, and the book brings up some of those topics in estate planning. Even if the person sells their business before they retire, this book is still useful as it's sitting there in that it covers that you can look at trusts. Trusts are great probate avoidance tools, and most people want to avoid probate and want to avoid giving away money to the court system and attorney upon their death. They oftentimes want to look into tax-deferred tools. The book covers at least briefly some of those topics of how to avoid tax burdens. And at the end of the day, even business owners who sell their business before they look into estate planning will still benefit from the estate planning chapter, and that when they come in to talk to me, they'll know what a revocable trust is, they'll know what a will is, and they'll know they want to avoid probate, jumping them past the entire 15 minutes of conversation I have to do at the start of every one of those consults of explaining those concepts. So it's an amazing benefit to business owners and non-business owners everywhere.
One of the things I really liked about the book is how Jeremy broke it down into different phases. I think there's 12 or 13 different phases in the book. And he really walks you through kind of the conception process in the beginning, how to do startups. He talks about the initial clients and what you do with them, how to bring on employees. There's just so much good information in there. And Jeremy, I'm not kidding. I wished I'd have had this, 40 years ago when we started our first business. There's a lot of mistakes that I made personally. And now as I get into this online space that I've been in now for about 5 years is protecting intellectual property, and some of the processes that we're going through there, how we maximize our business and how we can even bring on investors. And I don't think there's a stone left unturned. Keithel, would you agree to that also? This is a very comprehensive book about this business legal life cycle.
It is very comprehensive. Since I am a practicing attorney, am I going to say that there's no stone left unturned? Never.
Oh, no, man. You guys are not going to ever let anybody get you in a corner. That's for sure. So, but from my perspective as a business owner, it appears no stone has been left unturned. Keithel, thank you. I appreciate your insight from the U.S. And Jeremy, if you got a few minutes, I'd like to talk to you for a second and give us, from the author's perspective, a little more insight on this book. So, yeah, tell us a little bit more of your history, Jeremy, for those that don't know you.
Yeah, thanks for that. And thanks, Keithel, for going through the history of the book and how it can be useful for you. Bit about me. So I'm a lawyer from Australia. I've been a practicing lawyer for about 16 years now, which makes me feel really old. And I've acted for well over 5,000 businesses. And I really like to travel, and I enjoy meeting new people, and I really, really enjoy building new relationships. And so about 8 years ago now, I started my law firm with my business partner in that law firm. That was back in 2011. And when we started, the advice we got from well-meaning people was you've got to specialize. You've got to be a specialist in either commercial law, property law, resumption law, wills and estates. You've got to specialize in something. And what we found is when we went and spoke to our clients, and it's very much in vogue now if you're in any of the startup space about talking to your clients and hearing from them. We did that 8 years ago, and we asked them what did they want, and they didn't want a lawyer just for one area, and that, for property over here and commercial over here. They wanted a lawyer that could help them throughout everything that they were doing. So we decided to act for small to medium-sized businesses, the business owners and entrepreneurs, because they're the people that we really get excited about acting for. So that's my history, Big A. You and I met 2 years ago. I reached out to you to join the ISI Mastermind, and it's been great over, well, not quite 2 years, but 18 months since then.
Almost, yeah. Actually, you've been to the U.S. to 2 of our live events, and I've really gotten to 3. You've been to 3 already. I discounted you by 1. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
And about to see you for a 4th time. So we're excited about that as well. Well, tell me, first and foremost, why did you even write this book?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it comes back to my business coach and mentor, David Dugan. He told me right at the beginning when we first engaged him, you've got to write a book. And I said to him, I don't know, how am I going to write a book? I'm a lawyer. What book can I write? I've got no idea. And so we had it was an ongoing debate in our sessions every couple of weeks for a couple of years. And then I had 2 matters that I acted for people who they got themselves into a really bad situation because they didn't get proactive legal advice. And when you ask them why they didn't get proactive legal advice, it was the cost and the time and this feeling that the lawyers would lord over them and pretend that they knew everything and that the client knew nothing and make them feel like an idiot. And that really stuck with me. And these people, one was building a development down, a 30-story development down the Gold Coast, which is a place about an hour south of Brisbane. And if they just got legal advice before they started, they wouldn't have lost $1 million of their family's money. And another one was a guy who ran a coffee franchise. I don't know, you've probably got them in the States, where people drive around to different businesses in a coffee van and they hand out coffees. And he got sued, and he got some really bad advice about that, about when he was sued, and could have settled it earlier. But he didn't understand the concepts and didn't understand what was going on. And it really struck me. And I sat down and I was sitting in my office. I've got 2 offices. I was one up north, and I said to myself, "There's got to be a better way." And as Keith said before, how can we be proactive and not be reactive? Because it really annoyed me. And so I sat down and I went through all the clients that I've acted for, over 5,000 clients, and said, when did they do things well? When did they do things poorly? And how can we map this out? And that's when I mapped out the life cycle. And I went, there's 13 phases here. There's 13 chapters. I finally have a book. And so that seed that had been planted.
That was the outline.
Yeah. The seed that had been planted a couple of years beforehand came to fruition for me. It was, oh, here we go. I've got the structure of a book that I can write that is going to be useful for business owners. And it's funny, when I started it, my daughter had just been born. She's now 5.5. And when I first started writing it, I was getting up and doing the morning feeds, and I was up at 4 a.m. anyway. So I just did that put her in bed, and then I was up anyway. So I wrote for 2 or 3 hours before I had to go to work in the morning, and lo and behold, I had a book, and it's been a good journey, and it's been great to expand it. We've gone to the UK and now launching into the US, and it's been really rewarding, and all came from that initial the initial seed that was planted. You've got to write a book, and then all of a sudden it came forward.
Well, that's cool. Well, what originally was the book designed to achieve?
Yeah, so really there's 3 things that the book's designed to achieve. First is, or the 3 problems I should say, is that people find legal terms and processes confusing. And that's on us as lawyers, that we don't explain things in plain English.
Sure.
We often find, and I've found this through the clients that I've acted for, that people feel lost and they don't know where they're at, and they're scared of what's going to happen to them, especially if they go and see a lawyer, because we're expensive and and all the rest of it. And there's also no plan of attack for the future. And around the time that I started writing the book, there was a study that was released here in Australia, and we have an Australian Bureau of Statistics. I'm sure you've got a similar one over there. And there's a stat that 60% of businesses fail in the first 3 years. Yeah. And there was a study released by the Australian Government Productivity Commission this was in 2015, that said that of those businesses that fail, 95% of them are for reasons other than money. And the primary reason is a lack of planning and a lack of going forward. And that really struck home for me. And that was really a reason to start doing this, and to really push this out to a broader market. So the book's designed to answer those 3 problems by demystifying the legal process. I often say that I shed my inner lawyer to explain things in plain English. I think I did that well. I have great feedback. A couple of years ago, I renovated. Yeah, thanks. And I renovated my house a couple of years ago, and I gave my book to a builder, and he goes, I'm never going to understand this. And he came back 2 weeks later and said, I now understand. I now get it. And that's such a great compliment for me, because that was one of the things I really wanted to achieve. And so I fought my inner lawyer and I wrote in plain English. So that was rewarding. I wanted to give lost business owners an idea about where they're at in their business and what they need to put in place. As Keith said before, too often law is reactive. People come to us when there's a problem, and often those problems can be solved before they even happen. And so if we can give people an idea of where they're at in their business, then that's great. And also the third thing, and as I said before, lack of planning is a huge issue. It helps business owners to plan for the future by knowing what they need to do in their business, especially from a legal perspective. This book actually lets them do that and gives them that plan, because it can actually help you, show you what you need to do and what you need to do in the future. So yeah, that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but that's what the book is.
No, it's good. Yeah. That's good. Well, there's a lot of small business owners obviously on this call this afternoon. Who will find, you think, the most value or benefit from reading the book?
Yeah, I think business owners at the end of the day. Business owners who understand that they need to know more about their business. People who read, learn, and you've got to be a lifelong learner in life. One of the things I love about the ISI Mastermind, Big A, is the fact that we read, and we're reading books all the time, and we're constantly learning. And there's a lot of people who don't do that, and they're stuck in their rut of their business, and they don't know why. And
right.
Big reasons is exactly that. So the people who will value and benefit most are going to be the business owners. I give it, like Keith, I give it to my business owner clients, and we send it out as gifts to people when they join our firm and when they come on board, because we want them to have that understanding, and that's who gets the best benefit out of this book.
You're actually giving a real gift to everybody here tonight, because you've got this fixed to sell this book for 99 cents.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's like crazy. And everybody, before you get off this call, click on that link in the chat box and let's buy this book today, so that we can catapult Jeremy to the top of the list, so that he can get a #1 bestseller out of this book. Well, a couple more questions. There are a number of chapters here, but if you had to select only a handful of chapters for the business owners, like which of the chapters would you highlight?
Yeah, I think that for me, probably the main one that I think everyone should read, whether or not they're just starting their business or they've been in business for 40 years like you, Big A, is Chapter 2, Startup. There's so much that business owners don't understand about the fundamentals of their business and the structures and the things that they should have in place. I have business owners who've been in business for 30, 40, 50 years who read that and go, I now understand things. So for me, Chapter 2, Startup everyone should read it. Sometimes I wish I didn't name it Startup, but it fits in well in the life cycle. Right. But that's one that everyone should read. The second one is chapter 5, which is on intellectual property, and you raised that before. I think more and more intellectual property is becoming something that we need to protect, and we need to know when to protect it. I tell a story in the book of a client who, they came to me and we protected their intellectual property too early. And what happened is that they changed their intellectual property later. And so they ended up paying for it twice. And so the well-meaning legal advice is, let's do it straight away. Let's do it early. But that's not the good practical advice for the business owner. So getting an understanding of chapter 5 intellectual property, I think, is really, really key. And the last one, you said pick a handful, is chapter 11, which is sale of the business. At some point in every business that you ever own, you're going to exit your business, whether that be
one way or the other, right?
One way or the other, whether it be forced or whether you do it voluntarily, you are going to exit your business. And the first 10 phases are all about building yourself up and building your business up to being ready to sell from a legal perspective. So having all those chocks in place. What I found, and you know, as I said before, I've acted for a lot of business owners, is that when a business owner decides to sell, they're normally 2 years away from being able to sell their business. So to put everything in legally and have everything in place properly, it's usually a 2-year gap. And if something happens to you and you need to sell quickly, then you'll either not be able to sell the business, or you'll the price that you get for the business will be greatly diminished because you may not have something set up properly, and that can cause a lot of financial hardship and personal hardship. So reading chapter 11 gives an understanding as to what is actually necessary for the sale of the business. I'll just add on to that, Big A, one of my favorite things to always talk to people about is about taking cash. So taking cash in business. And the problem that has is you think you might be saving money on your tax. But you're losing money on the value of your business long term. And I always try and make sure business owner clients understand that going forward.
I think back, and the more I've talked to you and the more I understand your book, the more I'm upset at myself because of the pitfalls and the hurdles that I could have overcome very easily had I had this information years ago. We're 14 businesses now behind us over 4 decades. And I start looking and thinking through some of these things that I could have done differently. And even at times there was litigation and there was disputes that we had with different people, and the resolutions that you proposed and that you put forward, how we could have solved that. And then retirement issues and how I could have dealt with that differently, and maximizing the profits of the business, as you said, foregoing certain things for the greater good later. And you just so masterfully lay that out in this book. And it's just like, if you'll just follow this life cycle, that you've laid out. Well, a couple more questions, and we want to be respectful of people's time tonight, but a couple more questions. How challenging was it to adapt the concepts of this book to U.S. law?
It's a great question, and it's one that I get all the time. Having released one into the UK, I get asked this question all the time, and really, it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be, is the answer. The book deliberately stays at a very high level. I don't go into specifics. So it's very tempting as a lawyer to get into the specifics of what actual law says and what cases say and legislation and Supreme Court decisions and all the rest of it. What I've found in the feedback I've got is that business owners don't really care about that. That's for us lawyers to deal with. The book deliberately stays at that high level, and at the high level and the concepts that I talk about and educate people of what they need are very similar. And very similar across a lot of the Western world, actually, I've discovered. I'm planning on releasing this in other countries as well. And a lot of the concept and the conceptual stage is very similar everywhere. So I think I worked out that this book is about 15% different to the Australian book. And I was surprised. I had done a lot of research on it. And actually an ex-ISI brother, Bill, had referred me to Keithel, and when I went there I was like, this is going to be a big project, and it turned out that it wasn't as much work as we anticipated, and Keithel was able to really help me to simplify the changes that were necessary to make it adapted for the US market.
Wow. Well, congratulations, because that's one of the few things that I've ever heard that was not as difficult in the U.S. side as it could have been. So good for you that it wasn't that hard. You know, in the book, there's an online placement test that people can take. Tell the audience a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so this was something that, so when I wrote the book, it was great. Business owners loved it. And then we decided, well, not just, we didn't decide, what we found was that people wanted more. They wanted to find out what actually applied to them and their business. And, you know, we've talked about this a couple of times. Keith spoke about it, and I've spoken about it, and you've spoken about it, that people don't like to get legal advice, or they're not sure what that legal advice is meant to be. So what we've developed is an online test, and it's one that you can log into if you go to the Business Legal Lifecycle website, and you can do, it's 30 questions. It takes about 10 minutes, and it identifies where you're at in the life cycle. So it might find you in phase 5, protecting intellectual property, and it will tell you what you need to do in phase 5. It will tell you what you've missed from the previous 4 phases, and it will tell you what you need to do in the future. And what we've found is that gives a lot of value to business owners. And I do lots of speaking engagements around Brisbane and around Australia, and business owners love it. They love to be able to get a really simple report that tells them all these issues. At the moment, we've got version 1.0 at businesslegallifecycle.com. We're working on version 2. We were hoping to have it ready today, but we're just a couple of days late. So I will reach out to the attendees and let them know when that is, when that's available, so they can take it for their business as a thank you for being on here. It's normally $95, but we'll give that to the attendees for free to have a go at for their business. So, as I said, I was hoping to have it done for today, but yeah, software development always takes a little bit longer than you hope sometimes.
Well, what's next, Jeremy? What's next for you?
Yeah, well, as I said before, Big Game, my goal is to make legal advice accessible for all SMEs around the world. It's a big goal. It's one that I want to do, and you know, my next goal is to help change the way that people view lawyers, and that's even a bigger goal, and make us people more excited to meet with us, and more excited to actually deal with us on a day-to-day basis. So for me, my focus right now is getting this out to as many business owners as I can in the US, UK, and Australia. That's going to be a big push in the next 6 months. And in the meantime, in the background, I'm going to be working on Canada, South Africa, India, and New Zealand, because there's lots of businesses that can benefit from this kind of advice. I'm not going to do a book for all 200 countries around the world. I don't think there's enough time in my life to do that, but I'm going to do the big ones and give a really good overview for everyone going forward.
Yeah. Jeremy, you're doing a great job on a number of fronts. First and foremost, the book. Thank you for doing that. Second of all, if all attorneys had the persona and the disposition that you do, it would be a much more enjoyable experience to deal with guys. You got a great heart, and you really got a heart for the people. And so thank you for doing that. Jeremy, do you have time for a few questions? If I think some of the guys are asking questions in the chat box, and it looks like Anthony was asking a question. What do you see as the key problem that business owners make in their business?
Yeah, for me, it's around not being proactive, and so putting your head in the sand and not actually learning and getting advice where you need to. So it's really that being reactive and just trying to solve problems as they arrive, rather than actually being proactive and trying to solve them. I think that business owners that are proactive and try to learn themselves and try to get out there more will actually be a lot better and run better businesses and be more proactive. As I said before, it's one of the reasons I love the Iron Sharpens Iron group, is because we're all in it together and we're all there to talk about the problems and get advice. So that's my thoughts. Keith, did you have any thoughts on that? What the key problems that you see with business owners making their business?
I mean, it's definitely the proactive side of things. For each business owner, it's a little bit different. Frankly, I see more of the issues spring up in the formation and startup period than anywhere else. Usually, once a business owner gets through that, they've learned the importance of having legal counsel and more proactively seek that out earlier. So it truly is, like Jeremy had mentioned earlier, that startup chapter of the book that would be the one I'd point business owners to avoid some of the biggest mistakes they could make.
That's good. It's the same old story. You're going to pay me now or pay me later. And it's much better to pay me now and get great advice in the beginning so you don't have to redo it. And that's what the both of you are instructing these guys to do. And that's what this book walks you through, being proactive. I love being proactive and not reactive. Other questions, please type them in the chat box, or Jeremy or Keithel, I don't know if you want to unmute them and let them ask questions, or if you just want them chat in the box.
If someone wants to unmute, be unmuted, just let us know. Put in the chat. We're happy to ask questions. Stathis.
Hey, Jeremy. Really happy to see you launch this. So my question is this. So I'm in the age range where a lot of my friends and I are considering joint ventures, whether it's property or other businesses. And that's when you muddy relationships with business. What advice and experience can you reflect on how to have the most important conversations to make sure you're addressing the worst case scenarios and kind of creating a framework where things are addressed? If things go bad and things go very well, things are controlled in a legal perspective?
It's a great question. It's something that pops up, unfortunately, all the time where people don't go and get that advice. So really what you want to do is you want to have the frank conversation, bring it up, go and see an attorney or a coach or someone to actually help you work through those issues. One of the things that I see is probably the most fundamental issue that people going in, especially young people when they go into joint ventures, is that they don't have the experience. They don't know all the things that are happening in the past, and that's where you got to get advice from someone who knows what they're talking about and will help you to plug those holes. Because ultimately, what I've found is that I use the example about the development down the Gold Coast in Australia here, where they didn't talk before they started their business, and it cost them $1 million of their family's money. So have those conversations. I have a podcast as well, and in that I interviewed one of the authors that works with Simon Sinek from Start With Why, and his recommendation when we were talking about this issue was always start with the why. Why are you in this together? So start with that position of why you're in the business and where you're hoping to go into the future. Make sure that you're on the same page. Once you're on the same page, then that's a great way to start. And then have regular check-ins and regularly make sure that everyone's on the same page, because if you don't, then that's where those problems come in. Does that answer the question, Stathis?
Yeah, but you don't have like a series of questions where you do that gut check, right?
Like one that I could provide? Not really, no, because it needs to be, in my view, it needs to be dependent on the relationship between the people and get that advice from the person. I think the danger with having like a list that people could just download is that it won't answer the right or ask the right questions. And half the problem is asking the right questions. If you ask a great question, you get it. That is 90% of the solution. So I think you really just got to. Every situation is different, and that's the best way to do that.
Thank you, Jeremy.
That's right. Keith, did you have any other thoughts on that?
The one issue I'd recommend that business owners avoid when you're looking at a joint venture is making a joint appointment with the attorney. I've had too many times where I'm sitting in the same room with everyone, and I can't truthfully ask questions of, do you trust them financially in this role, with them sitting across the table? At that point, you're in a box and you have to answer, yes, of course I trust them not to run away with money. Practically speaking, run away with money is not the most likely scenario, but it's that sort of question that the lawyer's less comfortable asking and that you're less comfortable answering honestly that leads me to say, have separate attorneys that you meet with separately to negotiate the terms of the joint venture. And that way, each attorney is looking out for their client, and there's none of the awkward confidentiality and hesitancy to answer truthfully that's present when everyone's in the room together.
Great advice. That's good. Stathis, any other questions? You good? All right, buddy. Anybody else, feel free to unmute yourself and get your video if you have a question for Jeremy or Keithel. Hey, listen, while we've been on the call, I've even gone to Amazon myself and bought a copy while we've been on this call. And I want to encourage you to click on that link before you get off this call. It's going to make a big impact if everybody will do that before they leave the call. So any ideas about family and business from a legal point? Ian is asking.
That's a loaded question, Ian. I think my recommendation is to document everything and make sure you have the same conversations that you have. If you're going to go into business with a family member, make sure it's all documented just like a normal business owner. I think from my perspective, what I see is that family members make a lot of assumptions, and assumptions, that's where these things normally fall down, is they've made assumptions. And so you need to document everything, have those hard conversations, and don't let it slide. You got to have the tough conversations, set the boundaries, and enforce the boundaries. If you've got family members as employees, then again, that's my same recommendation, is document everything, make sure that everyone understands exactly what their expectations are.
Jeremy, I want to jump on that a little bit from the business owner's standpoint, if I may. I've had every member of my family work for me over the past 4 decades. 2 of my daughters were in business with me. They work for me. One of my daughters worked for me now for 5 years. And we have an employee agreement with my daughter. Yep. And the reason we do that is because it's my daughter, and I don't want there any misunderstandings. And so Brooke came to me not long ago, and she said, "Hey, Dad, are we going to be closed on this holiday?" And I said, "I don't know. Get your employee agreement and look. It tells you in there which holidays," and it eliminates any kind of confusion, especially with your family. So, Ian, I would strongly recommend that if you can separate the family dynamics from the professional dynamics and treat them on paper just like an employee, let them know what's expected. There's a dress code. There's when we're going to do evaluations. There's personal time, there's vacation time, everything is listed, and it eliminates all the confusion from a dad to a daughter, and now it's from your employer to an employee, and it just really helps eliminate that confusion.
Yeah, absolutely, and just solves all those problems. Well, not all the problems, but it certainly solves most of the problems. I think, Anthony, did you unmute yourself before to ask a question?
Yeah, just a real quick question. So there's at least 13 chapters. There's a lot of different things legally. Man, is there anything that we need to be doing like tomorrow or something that we need to be like on right now to make sure we do?
I think it comes back to where chapter 2 startup, like get a copy of the book, have a read of chapter 2 startup, and just make sure that you understand the structures of your business, because honestly, that's where I see the biggest fall down from business owners, is they go to their lawyer, they go to their accountant, they set up all these structures, they have no idea what they're actually doing. And that's good, well-meaning advice at the time, but things might change. So having that fundamental understanding helps business owners understand what they're doing and why. So that's what I think. If you're going to do anything tomorrow, get a copy of the book and read chapter 2.
Very good. Great question, Anthony. Very good. Couple more minutes and we're going to wrap it up if there's no other questions. Anybody else? Keithel, any closing comments?
I mean, other than how great the book is and how impressed I was with all of Jeremy's hard work before I met him, that's really my takeaway from it, is you've got to listen to this man. He really thought it out very well for many years before I got involved, and it's a great tool to bring to the U.S. for business owners and attorneys everywhere.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree more. And I'll jump on that as well and say, from a business owner's perspective, and I've said it twice already, I wished I'd had this, 40 years ago. It would have probably made me a lot of money and saved me a lot of money and headache by following your processes and your phases in this book. So, Jeremy, well done, man. Well done. What a great book. And I'm excited to see what the future is going to bring for you, for this book, and for the other countries that you're going to be doing it for as well. Jeremy, any final closing comments?
Well, firstly, thank you, Keithel, for all your help. There's no way I could have done this without you, and your help and guidance has been excellent. And it was fun too. I flew over earlier in the year and met you in person, which was good fun. So thank you to you and to all your hard work in helping me put this together. There's lots more to do, and this is just the beginning. And Big A, thank you to you too. As I said, we connected nearly 2 years ago, and it was, for me, I was connecting with someone I had no idea who you were, and it's worked out so well. And so thank you for all your help and guidance and everything that you do as well, because that's really helped build myself up to this stage, and it will help us go even further.
You're doing great. Guys, jump on there, buy the book, take the link, share it with some friends, and let's leave reviews also, because those are really important for the success of the book. So, hey, hats off to Business Legal Lifecycle and Jeremy. Keithel, have a great night. Jeremy, have a good one. All you out there tonight, thank you for attending, and let's keep promoting Business Legal Lifecycle. Thank you, Jeremy. Have a great night. See y'all. Bye-bye.